At the beginning of the movie, we witness Michele Salenzi cycling to his school in Trieste, Italy, with a €50 note which he intends to use for purchasing a costume for a party. In his classroom, he sits behind his longtime crush Stella, when their class is suddenly interrupted by an officer from the police, Giovanna, who is also Michele's mother. She is there to inquire about the disappearance of a student, and she requests the rest of the class to inform the police if they receive any information on the missing student. At this moment, Michele's nose starts to bleed, and he rushes off to the bathroom. Upon his return, his bullies, who have been tormenting him for a while, force him to relinquish all of his money. Bitterly disappointed, he goes back home and takes out a few pennies that he had saved. He decides to spend it on a costume. Michele then visits a run-down store and requests for a superhero costume. The shopkeeper hands him a skin-tight overall and a drab cape, claiming it is the costume of a Chinese superhero. Being unpleased, he buys it nonetheless. When Giovanna returns home from work, she sees Michele wearing the costume, refraining from going to the party due to embarrassment. She attempts to reassure him before eventually sending him to the event. At the party, Michele has a great time, and he even speaks to Stella. Unfortunately, his bullies then play a video of Stella walking through the street, accusing Michele of stalking her. Embarrassed, he locks himself in the bathroom and implores to be invisible right before the lights go out. The following morning, Michele wakes up to his dog barking at him, and curiously sees his body missing from the mirror. He rushes out and removes his robe. His mother walks in and pretends not to notice Michele's weird state, proving that only he could see himself. After she leaves, she calls to check on him. An invisible Michele then takes his long-sleeved clothes and returns to school to watch Stella, but his bullies catch up to him. Michele decides to teach them a lesson by walking into the school naked and invisible. As soon as he enters the classroom, the teacher suspends the bully. He then makes his way to the girls' changing room, where his silhouette is evident to everyone when a towel lands on him, making his powers vanish. The following day, a psychologist, Basili, is giving a lecture on teenagers' mental health, and Michele's hands flare up before they disappear. Thankfully, the class is over, and he runs off before anyone can witness his disappearance. When he returns home, he notices Candela in the room and requests her to go downstairs while facing the wall. Michele then takes off his clothes, and surprisingly his sister had stayed in the room, meaning that she knew he was invisible the whole time. With that, his powers fade, bringing him back to visibility. Michele is left standing naked in front of his stunned sister. When he turned around, Candela let out a terrified scream when she saw her brother had become invisible. Michele soothed her and informed her that his costume had granted him superpowers. At the police station, psychiatrist Basili investigated the missing children with Giovanna. While Giovanna asserted that they had been kidnapped, Basili maintained that the children were simply exhibiting typical adolescent rebelliousness. Giovanna returned home and found Michele still invisible. During a phone conversation, Giovanna revealed that Michele had been adopted. A Loveland Michele despaired and went to a nearby swing, where he was met by Stella. Believing Michele to be a ghost, Stella surprisingly welcomed him as a friend. To communicate, Michele made a smiling face in the sand. The two decided to meet again, and Michele noticed a blind man observing him. After Stella departed, the man walked away using a cane. That night, Michele visited Stella's home unannounced, and the two kissed. However, Michele's powers began to fade, forcing him to flee before Stella saw his face. Stella was later in her gymnastics class by herself when a needle struck her back, rendering her unconscious. Michele, in the meantime, determined to tell Stella the truth about being the invisible boy, and was on his way with his dog when he spotted a masked man carrying Stella away. Michele attacked the man and his dog bit his hand, yet the man still managed to escape. Soon after, the police arrived at the scene and concluded that the missing children hadn't run away, but had been kidnapped. Stella awoke in an unfamiliar place with her head attached to wires. To her surprise, Basili was there interrogating her. It was then revealed that he was the kidnapper. The kidnapper and his cohorts ran some tests on Stella and put her in a cell, along with two of her other missing friends. The following day, Michele was alone at a beach when he was approached by the blind man he had seen the previous day. The man answered all of Michele's questions, before he could even ask them, as if he could read his mind. When Michele inquired who he was, the man revealed that his name was Andrzej, and that he was Michele's father. Doubting Andrige's words, Michele accused him of lying, and Andrige began to explain his story. He used to be an ordinary man from a small town in Russia, before a devastating nuclear explosion obliterated it. The radiation killed many people and altered others, mutating their DNA, which gave them extraordinary abilities such as flying, telepathy, and invisibility, among others. These individuals were known as specials, and were taken to a military camp dubbed the Division for weapons use. The division exerted too much power on the specials, causing them to become weaker the more power they used. Furthermore, everyone was rendered infertile except for Andrige and Michele's mother. The two conceived Michele, the first special kid, yet he was taken away shortly after he was born. The division continued to pursue the couple to retrieve the child, but Andrige and Michele's mother were unsuccessful in their getaway, and the latter was killed. Before leaving the town, Andrige read Giovanna's mind and confirmed that she was a good person, so he left Michele in front of her door. The division discovered where the special kid was living and started to kidnap children to test them and see if they were special. Following Andrige's story, Michele was taken aback. He was about to look more into the matter when Andrige warned him of a fisherman suspecting him. Andrige handed Michele a suit that made him invisible, erased the fisherman's memory and disappeared. Several moments later, the police and Basili arrived. Giovanna told them that Michele was adopted, making Basili suspicious that he was the special kid. He offered to take Michele home, but Michele was wary of Basili and attempted to escape when he noticed his hand injury, which was the same place as where his dog had bitten Stella's kidnapper. It turned out that Basili had locked the doors and was planning to kidnap Michele, yet the boy was able to escape. Taking this opportunity, Michele asked Ivan, nervously, to take him away swiftly. As they arrived at a safe locale, Michele revealed himself to Ivan and disclosed the abduction of their classmates. In the meantime, Stella and her allies observed a ventilation system in the ceiling, and she ascended to the top upon her peers' shoulders. Hiding from the guards, she climbed a tower and found a searchlight, which she flashed with a joyful expression in the hopes her invisible companion would notice. When Michele saw the beaming face, he realized Stella had attempted to signal them, and he and Ivan followed the light until Stella was apprehended by the guards. Ivan caused an electrical malfunction, and an intangible Michele ventured inside. In the cell, Giovanni and Andrige held hands in their quest for Michele. As Michele reached a guard, he used his gun to demand they unlock the closet where Stella and her friends were held captive. After liberating them and locking the guards away, Michele revealed himself and stunned his comrades. They wanted to flee, but Stella insisted on rescuing an elderly man kept in another room. With Stella in the lead, they saved the man. However, he proved to be in control of her and had planned on luring Michele to them. Subsequently, they were taken away in a submarine where Michele recognized his telekinetic aptitude and used it to neutralize the men aboard. Upon their return to shore, Michele revealed his power to the onlookers, and, since their pursuers would soon return, Andrige erased everyone's memories and bid farewell to a tearful Stella and Michele. Everyone dispersed into their customary routines. In Moscow, Michelle's mother, who had been assumed dead, confronted the division, having defeated them at one point. She desired to control the normal population who felt out of place with their power, and she was informed that her daughter had been discovered. In a flashback, it was uncovered that Andrige had saved 2 children that day. As the movie concludes, a guard mentioned that someone named Natasha was in Morocco, bringing the potential of a sequel to light.